Do you have trauma from your chronic pain or symptoms? In a mind-body approach, what we're often taught, and it's not the wrong teaching necessarily, but we want to create lightness, ease, curiosity, non-judgment about our pain sensations, our symptom sensations. That's the goal of brain retraining. Here's where I see it go off the rails, is when you have trauma about your chronic pain or symptoms. Because if that's taking place, doing the brain retraining can have little effect at first until we process the trauma around our physical symptoms. So I call this at my clinic sensitization trauma. You won't hear this term anywhere else. It's something we came up with, and we help our clients process it. As well, in our course, we really focus on this as well. So sensitization trauma is when a trauma response happens to the onset or progression of your chronic pain or symptoms. This trauma response can look like a high prolonged state of fight, flight, freeze, or shutdown. When this is taking place, and this is normal, when we have symptoms coming on, we don't know why they're there. The medical community has little answers for us. Treatments aren't working. We often have this trauma response to them. This is normal as a human being, and I really want to validate for anyone listening that relates to this, that this makes sense. This is part of being human, and part of healing is working through that trauma response. Now, I want to talk to you about the stages of sensitization trauma that I often see people move through the longer they have their chronic pain or symptoms. I want to put a disclaimer here. This is a heavy topic. So if you're not feeling up to this video today, that's okay. Turn it off. Come back to it later. But this is a heavy topic and the things that I'm discussing. I also want to note I've come up with 4 stages here of sensitization trauma. It may not follow this path. Everyone's unique. Everyone's different. This is just anecdotally what I've seen and the process that takes place for people. So let's dive into this. Stage number 1, orienting towards something that doesn't feel right in your body. We start to clue in. We start to realize when we're having unpleasant symptoms taking place. The sensations become intense enough that we're starting to notice them. We're noticing that they're not going away. And in this first stage, what often happens is that fight or flight energy starts to click on for people. It's kind of that pain fear cycle they talk about in pain reprocessing therapy. We have this fight or flight energy, this anxious or angry energy as the sensations are taking place. Now, in this first stage, that fight or flight energy could be even more intense if, for example, your symptoms are really high and intense when they suddenly come on. Lots of people, they have more of a gradual come on, but some people have like a 9 out of 10 sensation level of pain or symptoms right off the bat. The fight or flight energy is going to match that usually. On top of that, if you've had an accident, if you've had some type of fall or injury take place, usually the fight or flight energy is even higher initially compared to someone who has it gradually come on over time. Stage number 2, confusion, fixation, and figuring. As we start to have the symptoms, they're not going away. We start to feel confused why they're there. We start to be wondering, like, what's taking place in my body? We're also trying to fix them and figure them out using medical treatments, because that's the first line of defense. That's what we're taught in our society. You have pain or symptoms, get a medical treatment. And I'm not here to knock the medical system. It has lots of benefits. It's just often not very effective in treating chronic pain or illness because it is often neuroplastic and your brain and nervous system is caught in a state of survival. But in this second stage, that fight or flight energy starts to escalate because people are frantically trying to fix and figure out their symptoms using all these medical treatments, and the medical treatments aren't actually being effective. This leaves us really confused and really lost. And so as a result, that fight or flight energy starts to increase more and more the more we try to fix and figure out our symptoms. This is why fixing and figuring out is often something we try to reduce in a mind-body approach because it keeps people in this high alert zone. Stage number 3, high fight or flight energy alternating between a shutdown state of hopelessness and helplessness. The longer our symptoms take place, the more treatments we try, the more we can get to this hopeless shutdown place. Later on in my journey, I really started to experience this. At first, it was fight or flight, but over time, I started to have moments of being just shut down, hopeless, in despair. And it kind of alternates. It's not necessarily one or the other at this point, but we're starting to shut down, which makes sense. When we have symptoms, we don't know what's going on, we can't figure them out, the treatments aren't working, we get to this hopeless, helpless place. And in this place, I think the unfortunate part is out of desperation, out of despair, we try more risky treatments, experimental treatments that maybe don't have much research backing, that are more significant. I've seen people travel to all sorts of countries to get surgeries, and there's not a lot of evidence to support that surgery was necessarily going to be helpful. But I get it. People are in this desperate place. And the unfortunate part is the more severe treatments can then result in actually medical trauma taking place, where that fight, flight, freeze, shutdown energy actually starts to increase even more in our brain and nervous system. And stage number 4 is complete shutdown. After the symptoms have been there for a long time, they worsen over time, and we've done everything we possibly can with medical treatments, we get to this place of shutting down. And I empathize. I feel a little emotional talking about it, but I empathize with anyone there because I got there. At the end of my journey, I would hide out in my basement apartment. If my partner Anne was even home, I wouldn't even know what she was saying to me. I was so disconnected. I felt completely numb. I was in this place of despair and so disconnected from the world and even from my body at this point. I knew I was experiencing pain or symptoms, but it was almost a survival mechanism at this point when we have sensitization trauma that we almost click off. And it's a really hard place to be and sit. And so, these are the 4 stages that I often see people go through. Maybe you relate to some of them. If you do, I really hope that the content on my channel can be helpful. At my clinic, I know we can't work everywhere. We're only able to work in certain provinces in Canada, but we really do focus on processing sensitization trauma, because in doing that, it helps us actually heal. It helps us heal our brain and nervous system and reverse the chronic pain and symptoms that are causing the trauma in the first place. And so by processing sensitization trauma, working through it, it can be really important. In my course, we have lots of practices to do this. I also have some somatic practices. I have one on the dorsal vagal system. I'll link to the top here that you can check out. But I have lots of them in my course, and I'm going to share more and more videos on this in the future. Again, on YouTube, I can't process someone's trauma with you. There's limitations around that. But I do suggest someone find a good trauma therapist that they trust, have good rapport with, so you can start working through some of this. So please put your questions or comments down below. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.